Welcome to today's luncheon. As you probably know, my name is Bethany Jackson. I'm your 2025 AIA Central Oklahoma president. Do we have any guests or first-time attendees here today? If so, would you please stand and introduce yourself? All right, welcome. All right, thank you. All right, welcome. All right, a few announcements. Oh, what? I can't see. I'm sorry. Okay, welcome. Anybody else? Uh, Welcome. Thank you guys for being here. All right, I think that's everyone. We're going to move on to announcements. Next week, we have our Inspiring Women in Architecture Luncheon. If you can find out more about this on the website or look at the QR code on the screen. The following week, we have a lunch and learn with Fox Blocks. If you need some last minute HSW credits, be sure to register. And then I would like to invite Jason Hollaby to the podium. He's going to share a few information about United Way.
Hi, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Jason Hullaby. I'm the president of New Fire Data Design Group, but way more importantly today, I'm here on behalf of United Way. I've been responsible for the Architects and Engineers Division of fundraising for 4 or 5 years now, something like that. And I just want to say, so you've probably gotten letters, emails, phone calls from me, and if you want those to stop, donate. Yeah, please. I feel like as architects, we probably care more about the communities that we're in than any other profession. I think it's a big reason that a lot of us got into it is to make a difference where we live. And there is no way to make a bigger difference than by supporting United Way, especially where we are today. With the government shutdown, it is impacting people as we speak, and it's only going to get worse as this thing goes on. So, with that, I would like to introduce Rachel Holt. She's the president and CEO of United Way, and our mayor's better half. So,
Thank you, thank you. I know everyone in the room that's like, "How do I know you?" That's what it is. You know me from Instagram. I do cook, by the way. If you think we always go out. If you think we always go out, I do cook. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Jason, for your work on our campaign cabinet. I know one of my board members, Craig Abbott, is also in the room. At United Way of Central Oklahoma, we support 68 partner agencies in Oklahoma, Logan, and Canadian counties that are doing health and human service work within our community. We fund the best of the best. The way we do it is our annual campaign for 102 years. We have had this annual campaign. I heard many companies, Manhattan, Bolt, that do their big annual campaigns, do employee campaigns, do workplace giving, do corporate giving, and that means so much to us. Last year, we were able to raise $17.6 million. We would love to surpass this year and every other year. Um, After we have our big annual campaign, what makes United Way so special is then we have donor volunteers. So all of you that will be donors can then be eligible to be our volunteers, and they are part of the allocation committee. And those donor volunteers are the ones that look at all of our partner agencies. You're divided into subcommittees. You look at financials and 990s and outcomes and applications. We require our partner agencies to apply every year. And then those subcommittees make recommendations to our larger board committee about how to allocate those funds. For the past 2 years, we have been at $500,000 in allocations, and my goal is to do that again this year and maybe even more. I don't know if you're aware, but the government is unwell right now. I will use my nice language, but I am an Italian from Philly, so I could use other language about my thoughts. In 5 minutes, I should be okay. But our partner agencies, I will tell you, I celebrated 2 years with United Way on Saturday, and yesterday was one of my hardest days at United Way. Every month we host, like you, we host our association for directors. So our partner agency directors get together once a month and talk about topics. and a lot of them were in tears. This SNAP benefit cutoff is real, and the lack of federal and state funding, they're in addition to their clients and a lot of their employees not being able to eat right now, and they are also receiving a notification from state and federal government that grants that they count on are dead, like cut off, like not in 6 months you're not receiving this funding, like tomorrow you're not receiving this funding. So now more than ever, we need your support on that annual campaign. We are also doing an emergency food drive. So if you want to help with that, we have an Amazon wish list. We have a way to give through money donations, and we are taking all of those donations and giving them out immediately to our partner agencies that run food banks. For food banks, just so you know, a food bank in typical times, which we have not been in a long time, for every one meal that they supply to a family, 9 meals are supplied by SNAP. So the loss of SNAP benefits is catastrophic to our community. So not to bring you all down, but there's a way to help. You guys are building this city. You guys are part of building this city. You are making it what it is. And so I ask that you support the community as a whole. Please be a United Way donor. Please be a generous giver. I just love to shame people, Catholic. We have this legacy giving. It's on our website, unitedwayokc.org. Look at the names in there. Get your name in there as well. And just thank you so much for what you do. And thank you for your time. Please give and give generously. Thank you.
All right, you're going to move on to board elections. I'd now like to introduce the slate of nominees for the 2026 AIA Central Oklahoma Board of Directors. Stand to be recognized as I call your name. For President-elect, President 2027 is Jacob Beebe of AIA AHMM. Secretary Kelsey Watts, AIA of Larson Design Group. Treasurer Clay Dobbins, AIA of TAP Architecture. Director Sean O'Brien of AIA HSE Architects. Emerging Professional Director Jessica Snyder, AIA of AEG Blatt. Associate Director Jeff Tice, Associate AIA of Cushman & Wakefield. Public Director Darla Mullet of Premier Lighting Sales. According to our bylaws, Section 441, we ask if there are any nominations from the floor. Don't be shy. Okay. I will now close the nominations in accordance of the Section 442, and I will declare the slate elected by acclamation. So congratulations to everyone on our board. I'd love to take a moment to introduce our amazing sponsors. Thank you for your generous support. We're able to do host these luncheons free of charge for all of our members. First, we have Manhattan Construction. Manhattan is a longtime iconic sponsor, and I'd like to invite Craig Abbott to say a few words.
My name is Craig Abbott, Vice President of Manhattan Construction here in Oklahoma City. I just want to say thank you for allowing us to be a sponsor and to join you. We are really proud of the partnerships we have with the design community here in Oklahoma City. I don't have a lot of comments. I just do want to kind of correct maybe a misconception about Manhattan Construction, in that we are only interested in the large, high-profile projects. That really cannot be further from the truth. We have a very strong focus in K through 12, higher education, healthcare. I would say 85% of our projects are under 50 million and 75% are under 25 million. And so maybe the misconception, we don't do small projects, we don't do that type of work, can be further from the truth. And so we really appreciate partnerships with design community, design firms. And what we really like to do is get in there and partner early. So if you need help with budgets, hey, what's going on with tariffs? What's going on with labor costs? Help up front and establishing some budgets. We are excited to plug in and engage that level. A lot of our pre-con teams back here at this table here. So thank you again for all that you do for building a phenomenal Oklahoma City community. It's just exciting to see where Oklahoma City has gone in the last 2 years. So thank you for the partnership and allowing us to be here today.
Okay, our next sponsor, a longtime supporter of the chapter, is Premier Sales Lighting. And with us today, we have Darla Mullet. Darla, would you like to come say a few words?
Hello, I'm Darla Mullet, and I am new to clear lighting sales. I have a lot to learn. However, I have a really great team, two of which are here with me today. If you haven't had a chance to meet them, please say hello. Maggie is from our Tulsa office, and she does what I do for the eastern section of Oklahoma. We work with architects and designers to help you with your lighting solutions. And then Adrian is also new, and he will be working with engineers in the Oklahoma City area. I brought cards and some beautiful pins on the center of your table. Please feel free to take some. I also have brochures if you want one. You can see me afterwards. I am so thankful for AIA Central Oklahoma. When I first started, so many of you guys, I didn't know anybody. And so many of you guys welcomed me in and took me under your wing. And I am forever grateful for that. And ChitChat was actually my very first AIA event. And it, along with the kickball tournament, are my very, very favorite events. So I'm very excited that this is the lunch that we are sponsoring. So in honor of our presenters today, I'm going to present one slide in 20 seconds. I mean, how hard could that be, right? So this is my slide, and I'm going to name all 100 plus manufacturers that we represent in 20 seconds. JK, I can't do that. Just kidding. Hats off. Yeah, Bethany's like, come on, girl. So hats off to our presenters today. You're going to do a great job, and I really, really appreciate what you do. And have fun. Thank you.
All right, thank you again, Manhattan Construction and Premier Sales Lighting. Our speakers that Darla is talking to you about is ChitChat. So we have a great group, and they will present 20 slides and 20 seconds per slide. Each of our speakers will come up and introduce themselves before they begin their presentation. And our speakers are Lisa Chronister, David Boeck, Michael Hoffner, Zach M., Tim Neville-L., Tony and Julie Blatt. So Lisa, come on up and get us started.
Okay, testing. Oh, wow. Yes, this is awesome. Good afternoon. I'm Lisa Chronister. I'm the Assistant Planning Director for Oklahoma City, and I'm here to talk to you about Not Done Yet. Several years ago, I read a book, Not Done Yet, How Women Over 50 Regain Their Confidence and Claim Workplace Power by Bonnie Marcus. Ms. Marcus is a writer, speaker, and career coach. I was drawn to this book because at the time, my 50th birthday was fast approaching. And now the 20 seconds begins. A person's 50th birthday is often hailed as a major life milestone and is usually approached with more than a little trepidation. Until I saw this book, I truly hadn't considered what effect turning 50 might have on my work and career. Why wouldn't it be the same as it always had been? To help put the book in context, I researched the state of professional women in the workplace. The percentage of women professionals has increased dramatically in my lifetime, and before the pandemic held steady for about the past 20 years. While women's participation in the workforce fell dramatically during the pandemic, it has increased since then, likely due to the growth of flexible work arrangements like part-time and remote jobs. Also, rising costs of living, wage stagnation, have made it necessary for more households to have two incomes. About 37% of the workforce, both men and women, is over 50. There are also twice as many women over 55 in the labor force as women ages 16 to 24. Some studies estimate that soon, women over 50 will represent 25% of the nation's workforce. About 2/3 of workers over 50 have reported seeing or experiencing age discrimination. Age discrimination has a detrimental impact on a worker's financial security, retirement security, and the ability to access benefits like health insurance. Women over 50 face both age and sex discrimination. Research shows that it is harder for older women to find jobs than it is for older men. This may be because society continues to value physical appearance in women, and age often detracts more from a woman's physical appearance than from a man's. In other words, women face gendered ageism. That is, age discrimination affects women more often than men, and it affects them more significantly than men. This leads to women being driven out of the workplace and having a hard time getting back into it. So, what can older workers do in the face of these challenges? What, if any, recourse do they have if they face age and/or sex discrimination? Fortunately, there are several laws that help protect employees, both men and women. There is the Age Discrimination in Employment Act of 1967. This is a federal law that prohibits employment discrimination against people 40 and over. This includes discrimination in hiring, promotions, wages, termination, and layoffs. There is also the Oklahoma Anti-Discrimination Act. I couldn't find when it was originally adopted, but it was amended about 15 years ago. This act prohibits employment practices that discriminate against employees and applicants 40 years of age and older, and offers similar protections as the federal age discrimination. According to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, in 2024, there were almost 90,000 charges of workplace discrimination across the country, of which 30% were for sex discrimination and 18% were for age discrimination. Both numbers were increases since 2023. In 1990, most reports of age discrimination were submitted by workers between the ages of 40 and 54. But over 20 years later, workers ages 55 to 64 filed more discrimination complaints than the younger age group. In 2010, the number of age bias complaints filed by women passed those from men for the first time. One study found that for older women, interview callbacks dropped by approximately 50% between ages 30 and 65, compared to a drop of about 25% for men. It's clear. Research shows that age discrimination against women is a real thing. Ms. Marcus's book offered some advice for what women over 50 can do to continue the work they enjoy, earn the income they need, and advance their careers. I think many of these also apply to the guys. This advice includes getting rid of assumptions that we are too old to compete or that we are no longer attractive. Older folks can also advocate for themselves and others, network, mentor others, be visible, dress the part, and of course, know our rights. Other sources have additional advice for older workers, like leaving graduation dates off your resume, staying technologically literate, getting additional education if needed, and keeping an open mind. Maybe you're being squeezed out of certain positions, but that doesn't mean there's not a different position that would be a great opportunity. There are many women in history who had successful careers after the age of 50. Of course, RBG was at the top of my list. She wasn't appointed to the Supreme Court until she was 60. An advocate for women's rights her entire life, while on the court, Ginsburg continued her influence on the legal rights of working women. Then there's Wally Funk, who in 2021 became the oldest person in space by flying in Jeff Bezos' privately developed rocket. In 1961, Funk was the first female flight instructor at a U.S. military base, so if you may know, that was at Port Sill. When I think of architects who didn't accomplish their best work until they were older, I always think of Louis Kahn. Kahn did not arrive at his distinctive architectural style until he was in his 50s. He began the design of the Salk Institute at age 58, and he was 66 when the design of the Kimball Art Museum began. After all this research, I know I can keep a positive attitude and rely on my decades of experience and job knowledge to get promoted, to compete, and to stay relevant. And of course, there are other accomplished women and architects that I can look up to for inspiration when I need it. Thank you.
It worked before. Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, I'm Dave Beck. I graduated from high school in 71 with Acer and Bill Bohr. I just want to put that in perspective. We're talking about age. Okay, a little bit about myself. Retired from teaching at OU after 23 years in the architecture program. I enjoy coming to AIA events because I see a lot of my old students who are now licensed architects and making a difference in their environment. I see a lot of old friends that I went to school with that are still alive. And I still practice architecture at a local level, which keeps me excited. But this talk here, I decided I wanted to talk about what I got to do the last 2 years I was teaching, which was to teach in Arezzo, Italy, for OU's. It wasn't an OU architecture program, but anyway, so I'm ready to start. What did I just do? Oh, it's like that? Okay, so Arezzo, Italy. About a half hour from Florence, about an hour from Rome, a little town that OU set up their Arezzo program about 25 years ago. Students go there every semester. I was fortunate enough to be able to teach, like I said, the fall of 2022 and 2023, classes of 8 to 10. There. That view of the first slide there, that view is Christmas in the Piazza Grande in downtown Arezzo. It's a medieval city, and at Christmas time, they light the buildings there that make it amazing, and they have the best Christmas market you could ever have any place. But when you go to Europe, you find out that every city in Italy and every city in Europe has a Christmas market. That's pretty amazing. You can see the Corso Italia, which is the main street in the medieval part of Arezzo. It's crowded every week. Now I've moved on quickly to Rome. she gave me 27 seconds, so I'm trying to spread this out. Rome, got to go there with the students the fall of 2022. Rome is an amazing place. OU's got their fall or their spring semester in Rome for 15, 20 architecture students, interior design students. And now we moved on to Milan. Milan is I guess what you would call the modern architecture and art center of Italy. This is the Garibaldi Center, which is one of their modern complexes. Just blew me away. And so I'm sharing kind of the inner and the outer look of what are some really cool buildings that actually Kohn Pedersen Potts were architects on some. This is Hamburg, Germany. One of the things I will say is when you're in Arezzo, like I said, it's a half hour to Florence, it's an hour to Rome, and then you can go any place in 2 or 3 hours. So with an hour flight to Munich and then an hour flight to Hamburg. I've got a cousin that lives there. I went there for his birthday. It was the shipping capital of Nazi Germany, and it's been rebuilt like every other city in Europe, especially in Germany. This is Budapest. Or no, this is Copenhagen. The two buildings that intrigued me was the Opera Center and the Energy Center, which was won an award. And they basically take trash and burn it and create electricity there. And you can look at the roof. It actually has the ski resort on the top. You can ski in the winter time. This is part of Copenhagen, which is called Freedom Town. It was an ex-military base that was taken over by the liberal-minded, pot-smoking Copenhageners in 1972. And it's totally mural, and people live there. Although I heard that the government just kicked out a bunch of people there. But you can see the Braveheart poster that said, "Give us pot." Everything there is about pot, smoking pot, using pot, taking pot for medicines. It was a very fun place to hang out. This is Vienna, a boring place. Vienna, Austria. We're getting down to my last trips in 2023. I went to Vienna and then Budapest in December of 2023, so you'll see still on the ground. But these are a couple of the modern buildings in Vienna, and then in Budapest, this is the train station that I came into town with. I got off the train. Budapest was part of the Soviet complex, and it's still suffering from the economic downturn there. They got the cool old buildings, but it's a really dirty, slow place. And it didn't help be snowy because it was snowy and cold. This is Prague, or as they say over there, Praha. So here in Oklahoma, we have Prague, which would be Prairie. But on the right is one of my favorite places, the Frank Gehry. They call it the Ginger and Fred building because it's two buildings that come together and are dancing. It's an awful design. The building is horrible when you get inside because they didn't know there was going to be 1 million visitors a day, and it wasn't designed for that. Okay, this is one of my favorite places, Istanbul. If you ever get to go to Istanbul, besides being the original Catholic and church center right after Rome, it was the Byzantine Empire. It goes back thousands of years. And the cistern that you see there was an amazing place. I tried to get a video in here, but I didn't. Basically, it was built during the Byzantine Empire. And that's it. And so what I will say was, if you get a chance to go teach over there, go, because every weekend you'll go someplace. I will say that the last trip that I took there was just before I came home. I came home, celebrated Christmas with my family. That's the end of December 23. And had a heart attack on December 31st and bypass surgery on January 3rd, 2024. So I was thankful that I got to travel, and I'm still here. So thank you. It's on. Well,
it says it's on. Oh, there we go. All right. All right. Well, I guess I'm representing the 60 something decade. So uh, I I think we'll be done with the geezers theme here pretty soon, and somebody younger will get up and present. Anyway, so I'm going to talk about the Prairie House a little bit today, and I learned some really interesting stuff about the house when I wrote the nomination to the National Register. So thought I'd share some of the more unusual facts with you today. So the Prairie House was built by Herb Greene in 1961, east of Norman. Herb was a student of Bruce Gough's and later a faculty member at OU. Did you know that the propane tank out front was disguised to look like the house at one time? Well, you know that now. All right, ready for the next slide? Okay, here we go. Maybe you didn't know that Greene was designing the Joyce house concurrently with his own. And that ramp that we saw in the first photograph, he sourced the red Oklahoma granite from his client's quarry and designed the office building for them on the right. So a couple of buildings in Snyder, Oklahoma, if you ever get up that way. Okay. Herb Greene began architecture studies at Syracuse University in New York in 1947. But after seeing some work of Gough's students in 1948, he decided to join the students at OU. Can you guess which project came from OU and which project came from Syracuse? Okay. So you now know that Greene studied under Gough, but did you know that in 1951, he did an internship with Los Angeles architect John Lautner, a protege of Frank Lloyd Wright's? You may recognize Lautner's Sheets Goldstein house from 1963 from the Big Lebowski. Okay. Herb also worked off and on for Bruce Gough and made renderings of the Baffinger house like this one. You may not have known that. The Gough archive, as well as Greene's, are at the Art Institute in Chicago. Okay, these beautiful drawings were done by an OU student under Gough named John Hertig, and they are part of the design concept that inspired Herb Greene to design the Prairie House. The color photograph in the middle is one of John Hertig's later building designs. The image on the upper left is quite possibly the best known architectural photo of all time. The photographer Julius Schulman shot Gough's Baffinger house in 1961 and ended up photographing the Prairie House too. Schulman stayed at the Prairie House, sleeping on the padded platform upstairs. Did you know the Prairie House was widely publicized? Schulman's photos were published in Life magazine, and it also appeared in House Beautiful, Look, a French publication called Aujourd'hui, and more recently in Art Daily, Design Boom, The Observer, Art Desk, and many others. The article in Life states that the house costs $25,000 to build. In escalated real estate dollars, that would be about $280 a square foot, or about $494,000 in total. The Greenes only lived there from 1961 to 1963, when Herb moved to the University of Kentucky for a new appointment. Okay, so there was no ASHRAE 90.1 in 1961, and yet it appears that Herb installed continuous insulation over the exterior walls. 65 years later, a lot of us don't do a really good job of doing that, so let's use that as inspiration. Okay, in the parlance of geometry, a football shape is called a Vesicu Piscis. The Prairie House is a Vesicu Piscis in plan and taper in section, making it very challenging to faithfully document the as-built cladding configurations. Okay. The sculptural carport canopy that sweeps up the south face of the house and terminates in a pyramidal shape at the top is more than just a formal gesture. It's part of a natural ventilation strategy that exploits the stack effect, heat rises, to help naturally cool the house. A screened porch in, oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong one. Unique bedroom arrangement supports family dynamics, getting together in the morning and promoting cooperation between children. Maybe you didn't know that ideals about the family inform the design. There's a movable partition between the children's bedrooms that allows them to combine playing space, which is really cool. Okay, here we go on the screen porch. There was originally a screen porch in the design. You can see that it's kind of a torqued cone in shape. It was never built. You can also see some kind of hanging down ornamentation and bebobs that are all around the house. And I'm kind of thankful that those didn't get realized. Okay, so the construction of the house was done by Herb and a couple of the students with the help of a local carpenter. That's, let's see, that's Herb on the left and the carpenter is on the right. This photo was from an Oklahoma Electric Cooperative Archive. Yeah, and this is the north elevation of the Prairie house, and Herb was never entirely happy with that side of the house. He feels like it was rushed or something, and he's even expressed interest in redesigning it for when it eventually gets rebuilt. He just turned 96, by the way, back in August, I think. Okay, you probably didn't know that Herb made some of the furniture for the house. So you can see some of it here. It's made from door blanks and rebar. It kind of matches the detailing of the handrail that goes up to the second floor if you've ever been there. And this slide is from a presentation that was done at the Prairie House in 1975. And Herb Greene and Bruce Goff are both there to talk to some OU students. So if you happen to be one of these characters in the photos, I'd love to talk with you and find out more about what the house was like back then. Okay, I am, people who know me know that I'm kind of a gearhead. This is a 1955 Studebaker Starliner coupe, and it appears in 16 of the photographs taken by Robert Bowlby of the house. So, and the car was designed by Raymond Loewy. Loewy is best known for his Coca-Cola bottle design. Okay, and then finally, maybe you didn't know that the Prairie House Preservation Society exists. Jake Hudo of Wayne Construction, who's here today somewhere, there he is. Shane Hood and me are working on some documents to support a capital campaign project that's coming up really soon to raise money to restore the house. So I'm really proud to be part of that, and thanks for having me in today.
Okay, I guess that worked? Yeah, sounds like it is. Okay, just to give some backstory, I'm Zach Maggia. I'm a licensed architect at ADG Blatt. This past summer, I got the opportunity through the University of Oklahoma and a partnership they had with a Guatemalan institution down there to be able to travel down there and teach for about a week. So, the university down there is just outside of Guatemala City, called the Universidad del Istmo. It's several different programs in the college down there, but they mainly focus on design construction applications, including their flagship program, which is the architecture program. I was connected through some of my own background in acoustics with the help of Dan Bucco, being able to do some of that work and understanding and working as an acoustician, also a feature. So the tricky part about this is a 1-week course. I've done everything from doing some little 1 to 2 hour lectures to doing a whole semester of course work. But 1 week to try to fit enough information in to create a full course, but then also not just go on forever was pretty challenging. So on day one, started out with the very basics, the very intro into why did you enroll? What's interesting about architecture acoustics? This was part of a 4-week series that included architectural acoustics and also lighting design. So I was the front end of this. And we really started to get into all of that. My first day in Guatemala City is very, very different than our own in certain ways, but also certain ways very similar. One thing that I found really interesting is that bottom picture. That's a chicken bus, is what they call them. Essentially, in Guatemala City, the downtown area has public transit, but the outside community where most people live, there is no public transit. So they use those as a private transportation method that's hosted by different companies, basically. And they're all patterned differently and they all correspond to them. Our first assignment right after day one was to look at different concert halls throughout the country. And part of this was they were going to present on it. One of the things about this course, it was an upper division course, and this was the first time that they would be presenting in English, as most of the business in Guatemala is done in English as opposed to Spanish. Overall, the kind of campus, we also did a lot of on-site acoustic demonstrations. Towards the front of the class, we were focused on outside acoustics and outside influences. So we went to several places, hit some very loud objects together to be able to demonstrate those principles. In the evenings after the course, the faculty was so incredibly gracious to take me on several different outings to better understand the city and area around it. My first one was kind of more to the countryside out of Guatemala City with the dean. This was a spa resort that she took me to and had dinner. Day 3 kept kind of getting more and more into the actual bits and pieces of architecture and architectural acoustic. So a lot about space design, how all of those sound frequencies started to play off each other, outside influences, inside influences, and really started to kind of break apart all of the different acronyms, all of the different measurements and stuff that go into architectural acoustics and make it a science, but also a lot about how we feel and understand those spaces. So like I said, a lot of different things that go into it, but we really tried to like pick apart a lot of the really, really commonly used ones, such as really understanding like what decibels are and also what RT, reverb, prime, that kind of stuff is. We kept going around campus, started looking at interior spaces and how they react. To add to this, the most common construction technique in Guatemala is either precast concrete or cast in place concrete. That is probably 90+% of their construction, even in residential. Going further into this, the next day started looking at more of the downtown areas. These were a couple new developments that focus much more on walkability. The assistant dean took me there to kind of look at that. This is a very, very car-centric environment. So this is kind of the direction that a lot of newer developments are going to, is being these more walkable areas. Going back into that, a lot of their construction is into that concrete. So we started looking at how concrete can be treated in different ways, how that reverb and that heavy material can really impact the space. On kind of the side closer to me, that's a breakdown of where decibels and how our hearing range works and what kind of equivalence to that. And then also partition types, getting back into kind of that architecture. This is a little bit less relevant to them because of all of that concrete construction. We tend to see a lot more in the STC ratings in more of our steel, stud, and wood construction. But it was still really interesting to kind of demonstrate both aspects. And then finally, as we're getting closer to the end of the course, we started looking at some of the more technology aspects in acoustic, such as this project that was using computer simulations to be able to predict different outcomes in acoustics, simulations and different aspects before things start getting built. It's a really interesting way to try to predict how sound is going to react in spaces. This was more exploring kind of the more older side of the downtown area. The far picture over there, that was game 1 of the NBA finals. And that was the only place I could find to watch it. So, very far back in the hotel lobby, there was a big FIFA game going on that was basically all over the city except for that one TV. Getting into kind of the final project that we did, my task to them was to take everything that we had learned about the acoustic of spaces and be able to come up with some ideas to enhance spaces on their campus. So several of the students picked different areas that we explored around. Some of them picked some areas that we hadn't explored yet. The really common ones, such as this one, was their big kind of student union area or cafeteria area. Kind of again, what I was saying, a lot of concrete, really high walls. art is a really important aspect to the school. So a lot of students implemented even more art into that school in that way to enhance the architecture. This student looked at dividing the spaces into different zones to be able to give different experiences. Also, with all of this, we started looking at a lot of metrics and different kinds of ways to realize these spaces in a community. Right, it's probably a lot of order. Overall, kind of as we get to the end of the presentation, the students did such a great job. They were asking so many questions about construction, architecture in the States. So I showed them some field pictures and some details and stuff of different projects and, how we do certain projects, cast in place, steel construction, that kind of stuff towards the end of it. Just the stuff they hadn't really seen yet. Many of these students will get their undergraduate at this school and then move on to either in-state or out of country to continue their education. And then finally, on the last day, this is, I think, on a Saturday, the entire student group took me to Antigua to understand the area some more. Antigua was absolutely stunning. It's a lot of very, very old Spanish architecture, stuff like that. So there's kind of what I did.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Timothy Neville-Lee. Can you hear me? It's really strange. I can't hear the amplification here. Tim Neville-Lee. Yes, I go by Tim if you want to call me that. And I work for All Monaghan Morris, which I like to call AHMN for short. The views expressed here are my own and not practices.
I just want to be clear about that. And what else was I going to say? Yeah, really delighted to be a part of this event. I think it's a great thing and very grateful to the invitation. With that, I think I'm ready to go. Do I have to press them? Is it going to be the right way? So if you don't know me already, if my reputation didn't precede me and you didn't read my bio, then I'm hoping that after speaking for a few words, you'll know that I'm not from Oklahoma. I'm a Londoner, and as a Londoner, my preferred mode of transport is my own 2 feet. Naturally, I carried this attitude with me when I moved to Oklahoma. I like walking because I'm not reliant on anyone or anything else, and as a consequence, I can only blame myself for being late. Until now, I discovered that walking in Oklahoma City is different, and I needed to learn again. Walking here or in any gridded city is an object lesson in the difference between distance and displacement. I walk comfortably 3 miles an hour, so I instinctively think I could walk anywhere in a 1 mile radius in 20 minutes. But here I'm confusing the difference between scalar distance and vector displacement. Oklahoma City is no longer open prairie, obviously enough. So the path we take closely restricted to the streets, to the path of its streets. Routes along the compass axes I can walk very quickly, but the necessary zigzagging of diagonals significantly slows my pace. The counterintuitive corollary is that I can only cover an area of 2 square miles in 20 minutes. And I know that Americans know this without being told by a Brit, because the phenomenon I discovered when I was researching it has a name: taxicab geometry, or Manhattan distance. I share this because I find it fascinating. As an aside, you may be interested to know that the same issue is true of organically grown cities too. Using AHMM's office in London, you can see that every possible 1 mile journey conforms very nearly to that 2 mile area of attainable territory. And so I wonder why we never see this on town planning maps, wayfinding sites. To bring this back from the theoretical to the realm of lived experience, let me list out a few of the more obvious impediments to the pedestrians of Oklahoma City. You will doubtless have your own catalogue of cracked and crazed sidewalks, towering curbs, and myriad obstacles, intentional and incidental. I'm going to offer up a few more examples that I expect to be controversial, and none more so than this first one. The crosswalk button. What, you ask? Surely a mistake to chastise a device so manifestly created to aid the pedestrian. But what does it do, and who does it serve? It ensures that I'm standing stationary at an intersection for long minutes watching the traffic flow past me. The Oklahoma City sidewalk so favors the car that it does nothing to promote pedestrian safety or convenience. And I don't believe it will until the walk sign appears automatically without having to press that button, and drivers are banned from making a right turn on a red signal. So often the ostensible concessions made to support passage on foot are really barriers. And the most egregious example of this occurs downtown, where if I was interested in following the rules, I would wait for a signal to proceed along the sidewalk, which is self-evidently my territory and not the car's. And don't even please get me started on the streetcar. How anything conceived for the public good can so universally disadvantage us just amazes me. Motorists, cyclists, pedestrians, and streetcar riders alike are frustrated by its pointless meandering through the city. But I think its failure is emblematic of the challenges that face the pedestrian in Oklahoma City. I expect, and I would be glad if someone contradicted me, that the streetcar was not designed by anyone that actually rides public transit. And I don't believe our streets were designed by anyone that actually walks. To illustrate, another of my pet peeves is barrier planting. It's obviously done with good intentions to keep cars away from people. But I want to be up close and aware of what's happening on the street and to be able to step into it at a moment's notice. And this then is how I learned to walk in OKC. If you really walk to get around, you don't want anything to break your stride. You realize now that I avoid crosswalk buttons wherever possible. And despite everything I said about diagonal passage through the city, it is my favorite direction because I can proceed down a street, wait for a break in the traffic, and then cross mid-block without having to break my stride. I also gravitate towards surface parking lots, bank drive-throughs, alleys, pocket parks, undeveloped sites, where I can make a clandestine break from the tyranny of the orthogonal grid. And so much better when one of OKC's rare diagonal roads happens to align with my direction of travel. I guess if there's any point I'm making, it's that I walk here out of sheer bloody mindedness, because it's what I'm used to and because I think it's the right thing to do. But walking in a city ought not to feel like a guerrilla tactic, and frankly, that's how walking in Oklahoma City feels to me. But it's in our gift to change this. First, as architects and developers with some sway over, architects and developers with some sway over developers and development of the city, we can be advocating for the well-rehearsed benefits of building line streets, infill development, active frontage, and the things that make urban sidewalks a lively and pleasant place to be. Walking in the city has been a solitary and often miserable experience, but it continues to improve. And in case I've come across as cynical or ungrateful, let me be clear, I am really very grateful for these sidewalks that have sprung up on my own street and the new crossings at Penn and May. We've witnessed, I think, great strides forward in Oklahoma City in the quality of the pedestrian infrastructure and the architectural backdrop that makes it worth using. So the most important thing, if you take away from this, and the most important thing we can change is just this: please join me in using it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. We're gonna continue this discussion of walking. So I'm Julie Blatt. This is Tony Blatt. We're both principals of ADG Blatt, and we are excited to share with you today our recent journey to Spain, walking the El Camino de Santiago. A little background: this is something that really I desired and wanted to do after watching a movie 15 years ago called The Way with Martin Sheen and Emilio Estevez. And it became more serious when the nest that was full started emptying. And in 2018, I asked my longest and best time friend and her husband to consider it. And so it's taken us 7 years to finally find a time that we could take time to truly walk the Camino. It's not something you do in one day. And we're excited to share this journey with you. So the Camino, even though it's new to us, maybe new to you, it has been around for a long time. Camino de Santiago started in the 9th century when the relics of the Apostle St. James was located and buried in the far northwest corner of Spain. It is interred there, and a cathedral was built in the Middle Ages, and that town is called Santiago de Compostela. And there are over 30 routes to get there, but the most popular one was the French way that we took that starts in the Pyrenees. And you realize millions of people have walked that path. Pilgrims that was popular in the Middle Ages, and you felt it when we walked because there were certain sections that were 8 to 10 feet below grade. And you just got that feeling of, oh, Francis of Assisi was here, and millions of pilgrims have walked in populated Spain because of it. And to say you completed the Camino, you have to walk the continuous 100 kilometers into Santiago. That's the minimum route. And we were very excited, Trish and I was, when we found a marker that said only 10 more kilometers to go to Santiago.
So every day we would start with either a picture to our family showing proof of life in the morning that we were getting ready to walk out, or the same proof of life that we had now got another Wi-Fi signal and we are back into the city. So arriving or heading out with our backpacks, we were always looking for the blue markers. It is the best marked trail that either you can see a marker or you can see a yellow spray can with arrow. Every morning we would eat breakfast. There would be a breakfast spread to be ready in our hotel/hostel. And then we would head out. Some morning we would head out in the dark with our headlamps on, or it would be a more mysterious thing. But either way, it was a very wonderful walk. There was a variety of things that you had come across when you were out on the trail. It might be a medieval bridge, and we crossed over several of them, or it might even be that you would be walking along in a small village between a few buildings, and all of a sudden the gate would open and the farmer would let their cows out. We would have to walk with the cows and a couple of really energetic sheepdogs. And you might be walking along a highway, or you're dealing with a little bit more automobile pedestrian interaction. Sit down at a bus stop. You might be walking in amongst eucalyptus groves or chestnut groves that are really high. And sometimes you're walking in farmland and the trail, like Julie was saying, up and down. But then about the third day, your mind clears. The things that are going on in your head of all the commitments that you thought you had to take care of go away. And you can start thinking about what.
And this is my favorite picture. It was Tony finally taking time to start taking pictures. So I had lots of pictures, taking pictures of Tony taking pictures. So it was quite beautiful. And it was interesting to finally have that peace and to be present. And as you walk that journey, even though the trail was beautiful, it was reminded many times of those who've gone before us and what the purpose of many who walked it. We see the cross of St. James, the shell is a symbol of pilgrims. Water was throughout, and the old water fountains that were actually good for us to drink, as well as other symbols. But there was that lovely rhythm of these Romanesque villages that were just fantastic. The wayside crosses that were throughout, they'd been there since the Middle Ages, always a church, always a cemetery, and the cafes were fantastic. Every couple of miles, we're like, sure, we need a cafe or a coffee or a croissant. But the symbols embedded throughout were beautiful. The sidewalks, the various artwork, and of course the statues that then became shrines, and seeing how everyone came together from around the world was just incredible. But I think the symbols and the reminder just was incredible that we wanted to share with you. This is funny.
I had to rewire my brain because we are no longer in the United States under the IBC building code. It is entirely different. This is the view off the elevator into the fire stair that is also open to the guest rooms with no handrails, definitely a light guardrail and open risers. I came to find that for me, it wasn't so much about the walking. It was the things in between the walking. It was the stopping and sitting, eating and drinking, having our time to fill out our passports, which every place that we stopped, we would just stamp and a date. And then also there was a local Galatian dish, octopus, which I love. And everybody else hated it, so you have once, and that was the only photograph. But in the evening, when we would arrive into the villages, we would get cleaned up, and then we would head out to dinner. The people were wonderful. The food was amazing. The wine was shockingly inexpensive and also fantastic. But it was a great experience. When we arrived in Santiago, it was almost a little bit surreal because we walked out of the woods and we walked right into suburbia, because the part of Santiago that we were going at was about 2 kilometers in. And so we had to walk through suburbia and a little bit more urban area before we eventually allowed to the freeway.
So on 6 days when we arrived in Santiago, the cathedral is that destination, but we found out the journey was what we enjoyed the most. And we cleaned up and went to the Pilgrim's Mass that evening. That day, 1,900 pilgrims had arrived from the various routes right before us. These are just some beautiful aspects of the cathedral that had been cleaned up, that was built in 1042. But the highlight for us was at the end, they did the blessing of the pilgrims. It doesn't happen every time. It's called a boto primero, which is like a large sewer door or a large incense that actually swings from one roof of the ass to the other. It was done in the Middle Ages, really to help with the smell of those smelly pilgrims. But it's a beautiful, and it takes eight men to pull and have that swing from one side to the other while the organ played, and it was quite beautiful. We stayed there. We thought we were going to be just resting and be exhausted. Instead, we walked Santiago for 2 more days and loved that Roman town, and the views were gorgeous. The food was great, and seeing the pilgrims from all around the world, hearing the different languages was just amazing.
So the last day before we left Santiago, we got up and we went to the Pilgrim Center and we went to the English Mac. And I was thinking, okay, I'm going to be surrounded by Americans. It was standing room only, and I think there were 4. America, I said there were 7. There was 3 other than us. But it was normally a daily mass. It was like 30 minutes. It was 2 hours of real fellowship, and there was tears and stories and wonderful. The thing is, there was a universal vernacular and universal salutation. Whether it was good morning, it was Buen Camino. If it was good afternoon, it was Buen Camino. If it was that was hard, it was Buen Camino. But so that's what we did. And for everybody going forward today,
Buen Camino.
Okay, thank you to all of our speakers. And we have a small gift for you, so please come up to the stage when we are finished. This is my official last luncheon as president, and I'll be passing the baton over to Joshua Hill of Studio Architecture next year. And thank you again to our sponsors, Manhattan Construction and Premier Lighting Sales. Please remember to pick up your trash. Have a great day, and we are dismissed.